States are safe when three principles are met: the strength of their societies, the strength of their militaries, and the strength of their alliances, Polish Deputy Prime Minister and Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz said earlier. He also added that we are developing these three pillars while at the same time strengthening our allied relations with the Federal Republic of Germany. And now joining me to discuss the defense relations between Germany and Poland and the potential for European peacekeepers to be sent to Ukraine is Łukasz Jasiński from the Polish Institute of International Affairs. Hello, Łukasz. Thank you very much for joining us on World News
Hello.
Tonight.
Thank you for having me here.
Yes, now German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius was here in Poland today. So in terms of German-Polish relations concerning security, do you think that they are stronger now than previously or maybe potentially even ever before?
Well, I would say they are more or less on the same stable and a good level of cooperation. Just to remind you, the previous mission of German Patriot systems that took part in 2023, so a little more or less 2 years ago in Zamojszczyzna region. Also the thing that was announced today, so the fact that the German Luftwaffe planes Eurofighter will take part in NATO air policing mission in Poland. It's also good news. However, it's also nothing special because such missions also take part from time to time. So I would say that our relations concerning defense are on a stable, good level. We remain allies in the framework of NATO. Another interesting thing is that there will be a big deployment of the Bundeswehr heavy brigade in Lithuania. So this quite perilous place on the map of Europe, especially concerning the NATO's eastern flank. And this deployment actually is one of the biggest projects of the German Zeitenwende, so this series of reforms concerning Bundeswehr, and it is to be finished in 2 years' time. But still, some processes are going on. There is already a special small unit preparing this deployment in Lithuania that is already functioning.
Right, and that whole deployment has been somewhat delayed, has it not?
Well, there were some discussions, should all the soldiers, we are talking about more or less 5,000 troops, should be already delivered and deployed in Lithuania, or should there be some kind of model that most of these forces will be waiting in Germany, and in case of any dangers could be rapidly deployed in Lithuania. All in all, based on a bilateral agreement between Germany and Lithuanian authorities, this 5,000 troops will be deployed permanently in Lithuania into localizations near Vilnius and Kaunas.
Now, if we look at the German political scene, which scenarios do you think in terms of support for Ukraine could we possibly see coming up this year?
Well, the most probable scenario is that the CDU, so the Christian Democrats, are going to win the Bundestag elections in exactly 1 month's time. Afterwards, probably there will be either coalition with SPD, so there is a chance that Minister Pistorius will remain as a Minister of Defense, or with the Greens. These are only two possible coalitions available, according to the opinion polls. I suspect that the general level of help, of support for Ukraine will remain more or less on a stable level like in the previous year. We need also to remember that Germany are facing now severe economic crisis. There is also a question of a new state budget for the next year, and there can be some unpleasant developments concerning it when the new government will try to shake up the economy a little bit. So I suppose that this support will remain more or less on the same level. Perhaps this new government, and with Friedrich Merz, so leader of the Christian Democrats at the helm, will be more eager to send Taurus missiles. So this type of weapon that was for the Chancellor Olaf Scholz and for Social Democrats an absolute taboo topic, and that has been blocked for almost over a year or almost 2 years.
Right, that would be one very significant development if indeed it went through. Now let's move on to this potential peacekeeping force which could be deployed to Ukraine. President Zelensky has said that a minimum of 200,000 European soldiers would be needed in the country. Not only from the German point of view, but including the German point of view, would Germany participate in such a mission, or do you think it would be rather reluctant?
Well, Germany could participate in such a mission, but it depends from its character. It depends if it would be a mission basing on a wide alliance of states, especially NATO states, perhaps some NATO states plus other third parties. But the problem is the potential. You mentioned this figure of 200,000 soldiers. Actually, Bundeswehr, at the moment, German Bundeswehr has about 180,000 soldiers. So the scale is like absolutely enormous. And I don't.
Will it be shared between UK, France, potentially Italy, other European NATO countries?
Of course, but still, it would require deploying of thousands of soldiers there. I suppose that the only way in which Germany would be likely to involve in such a mission would be creating a very wide coalition of states, especially, of course, basing on NATO as this main pillar, but also perhaps with some third countries as well.
Right, but based on the previous German government, or the current German government, their reluctance to take on any risk, mentioned the storms, the Taurus missiles. They've refused to give those to Ukraine. Some are concerned that putting European forces in Ukraine could actually risk escalation, and if indeed a ceasefire is broken, if these troops are somehow involved in an attack. So in this conceivable notion that could potentially take place, would Germany even consider such a move?
Well, if it would be a NATO, some kind of NATO peacekeeping mission, because still this perspective is quite vague. I mean, Donald Trump promised that he will end this war in 24 hours. Now there are some signals that perhaps perspective is 6 months, perhaps more, who knows? So we are talking about hypothetical scenarios. I think that the only way in which Germany would be eager to involve in such a mission would be, once again, building it basing on a NATO, and the framework of NATO. It's actually, of course, at the end of the day, all about deterrence and credible deterring Russian troops in a credible way from breaking this possible ceasefire. Also, the question of the US involvement remains open. Yeah? Will it be absolutely out of the question? Or should it be somehow like in a more symbolic terms? Or perhaps that US could only provide a logistical support, something like this. There are like numerous questions that are still to be answered.
Right. Okay. Well, Donald Trump has put forward the 5% spending goal for the NATO alliance for members to reach. We know that last time Donald Trump was president, of course, he was on Germany's case for not spending 2%. Germany is set to meet the 2% spending this year. Can Germany meet 3 or 4% in the short term?
Potentially,
will it be willing to meet this?
Well, I suppose that they may find themselves in a situation when there will be no other possibility than at least trying to meet this, like 3.5% or at least, or 4% more or less. Donald Trump actually during his first term was right when it comes to this 2% GDP spending on defense. The example of Poland shows that even a smaller economy, much smaller than Germany, can actually do it. But the problem is the perspective and the path to achieve this, let's say 3.5%. I don't believe personally in 5%. I think that Donald Trump now makes some kind of a bargain. He starts the negotiations. It will end on a 3%, 3 point something, and then Trump will be able to tell that this is his big achievement. The problem is the perspective, and the problem is finding way of financing it. Should it be financed from the every year budget, which would be quite difficult because it would require cuts in social spendings, which is, of course, all the time very highly unpopular and brings political costs. Or perhaps there would be some other solution, like creating once again a special fund founded by German bonds, for instance. Also, quite an open thing, but I suppose that if there will be really strong pressure from the side of US, then Germany will have like very small room for maneuvering here.
Well, there might be some tough decisions to make. Łukasz Jasiński, German analyst at Polish Institute for International Affairs, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Thank you for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World. Good night.